I'm calling to order the Ad hoc Affordable Housing Committee, hopefully soon to be no longer ad hoc. Let's see if we can take those letters. We are beginning just a little bit late because budget ran over. We have two items on our agenda, possibly just one. We discussed the writing of a letter about the emergency shelter, and Councilmember Sepulveda has composed that for us, and I think, do y'all have copies yet?
Does everyone have copies?
Do you have a copy of that one?
We just basically rewrote it a lot, so we've been working on it. Yes.
All right, we would love to hear your comments on how you think we could further improve it. And
Do you want to read it from the beginning?
Shall I just read it?
I will recognize either of you two wish to speak on that.
She won't be able to read my handwriting.
Okay. Councilmember Welch, recognize.
We, the Affordable Housing Committee of Metro Council, believe our city has an obligation to care for all of its residents, including our homeless population, particularly during the winter when they need safe, accessible overnight shelter. While shelters such as Nashville's Rescue Mission and Room at the Inn successfully provide services to a large number of homeless Nashvillians, they do not service all those needing overnight shelter. This is when the city's overflow shelter is critical. Unfortunately, the overflow shelter's current location is hampering our city's ability to meet its obligations to our homeless citizens. Last year, the overflow shelter served an average of around 200 people per night, but this year that number has dropped significantly. In fact, over the first 6 nights the overflow shelter was open, the shelter averaged less than 58 people per night, an average skewed by one night when the temperature dropped to 17 degrees, and a larger number of homeless used the shelter. The response to the shelter was almost uniformly negative, and most residents said they would not return. Here are a few of the comments residents gave us or told us on their experience. I got to work on that sentence. Then we read these quotes. It feels like a jail. They are running the place like a jail. They even made us line up against the wall like jail in the morning and then walk out single file to the bus. We're not criminals. Quote, we were forced to lay down in bed in a certain direction and sighed so officers could see our faces from the door. They had flashlight checks throughout the night, swinging them in our eyes to see if we were complying, and there were officers yelling at people to obey orders, end quote. One woman reported that on the first night she was strip searched because the guards found a loose bag of tobacco in her belongings. She reported that she was on her period and was told to remove her tampon, which she found traumatic. If people will not use the overflow shelter, it is a waste of money and an opportunity missed. As a city, we can and must do better. That's as far as we got, and then we need another paragraph to wrap it up.
One comment I would make, so far all the comments here are more related to behavior of the people running the shelter than the actual physical location, although we know that part of the issue is that it is a jail, which is why it is feeling like a jail. Are there other comments?
We should probably mention it is in a jail. We didn't mention that it's in a jail.
Yeah. And I guess just, I mean, Tim, I think the larger issue I heard from Ingrid was, for some people, that's a traumatic issue, just marching up to that. I would appreciate if, Judith, since you're here, if you can give us a little bit of perspective, and I missed the beginning, again, because budget ran over last time, so you may have talked a little bit about what populations it is that are not going to the other shelters and why, and sort of what the needs of an overflow shelter should be, and if you just kind of give us some context.
So one of the things, and just listening to the letter, some of the things are hearsay, and we actually had a community meeting with the providers and took also all of that into account. And Metro is right now really looking at what's fact, what not, and addressing some of the behavioral things.
What's
so I would just caution from behavioral
Are you meaning
stuff.
those 3 points that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was
like
gonna
if you focus on the location, that's one thing. That's kind of a fact thing. With the behavioral stuff, we really need to look into what happened, what not, what is coming out through trauma. When people are traumatized, sometimes, and some of the things we're gonna be, we have somebody actually kind of riding along with them today, and just go through the whole process from the staging area in a bus to experience that with some of the people that are at the shelter today. Now, looking at the data, and I'm working very closely with Rescue Mission and Room and Inn to really looking at, since November 1st, every week I'm collecting all the data. So what's an overflow shelter, when we're looking at capacity alone, it's not always addressing some of the people that have mental health issues, that have issues that they will not go to one of the other shelters. So there is always a need for some type of what do we do. I also want to mention and really praise Nashville Rescue Mission. I've been working with them since July to remove some of the barriers. They're accepting people with pets. They also really looked at every single barrier that I listed for them this year, and that included couples, but they cannot accommodate couples due to safety issues in the locations that they have and the staffing that is there. So the other thing with the capacity issue, I've been at one of the staging areas when the temperature was 28 degrees below, but it didn't fall to 28 degrees until 5 a.m. That means it felt rather warm when it started at 7 p.m. And even 11 p.m. it was still relatively okay because it hadn't reached freezing point yet. At that point, people who don't want to go to any shelter just don't go. And I've seen that in trends at other locations as well. So there are so many nuances that go into, but definitely, I mean, the numbers people utilizing it has not been as high as in the past. Part of it is also, location. Part of it is access, easy in and out. And the easy in and out last year, I would argue, has also increased the numbers. People that otherwise would go to the Mission went to the Metro overflow last year because it was way easier to go in and out. It was kind of those type of things. So it's the way it was done last year, in my opinion, has not been sustainable because it got so overcrowded that the people with mental illness who cannot be in crowds were again left out. So some of the people that Metro wanted to serve, I felt, and I made that loudly clear, I felt were still left out. So I actually, there's a Homelessness Planning Council meeting next week, and I'm going to present a recommendation that I had created last year in February. I see there are 3 approaches that need to happen around cold weather. One is, let's get through this season, and you write your letters. I recommend you sticking with the facts that you have, because it really gets skewed if you, and it doesn't help.
They made it.
Hello. Sorry. 2, I have a budget that I put together that if we could outsource it with an RFP, it is so much cheaper to do that than for Metro to run something at a certain temperature. And the comparison, so I'm basing it on last year's numbers. Last year it cost Metro an average night, and it was open for 25 nights, $5,100 per night. And that's just the operation. That didn't include the cost of material or kind of in-kind stuff. The same thing, calculation of if we had RFP'd that out per night for 3 locations, 50 shelters each, and the nonprofit would have run those in different areas, it would have been just over, I think, $1,500 a night. So it's 5,000 versus
3 shelters.
Yes. Yeah. Just because it's just that much. It is that much cheaper, and also includes some income.
Would those, is it all right to ask questions like this?
You're recognized.
So one is, that's kind of the, I'm going to try to see who needs to submit something in a budget for next year so that it can be done more that way. And that wouldn't leave Metro out. Metro then could do a true overflow, which is based on need and based on, let's say, if it's in the single digits. In my opinion, that's just, certain situations we really need to see that we are opening doors somewhere. So,
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you. Under this, the RFP as as it stands right now, would we just keep these open all winter, or would they still be triggered by cold weather?
They would still be triggered by cold weather, so that would be, I said there are 3 approaches that I think need to happen. One is get through this immediate. 2, next winter and following winter is RFP it out, have a nonprofit run it, do it in a way that is more, nonprofits are just trained, to do this, anything additional. And then 3, I think in about 2 years, there's a whole document I put together. Well, it's a one-pager. I will share it after I share with our community board, where I think several things need to happen. One is we need to get better data, HMAS. I'm going to ask for, all that. And based on that data and coordinated entry, we need to identify who are the people that are going to die if they're outside, period. Not cold. I mean, whether it's 90 degrees or 19 degrees, they shouldn't matter. They need to be in. And I will be calling then for, once we have the data, how big a shelter and RFP do we need for a year-round shelter that catches the most vulnerable people that are about physically or mentally in a state that otherwise they would die, and they're just absolutely avoiding any other shelter. And work with the other shelters to help identify the people. So that Metro can take a stance of nobody should be on the streets in our city, period. That doesn't mean everybody will choose to come in, but...
There's an opportunity.
Yes.
Great, thank you. So we're reading through the letter that Councilmember Sepulveda has composed, and I recognize you, and then Mr. Taylor.
Great. Just a couple of questions and follow-ups. So how are you guys conducting a study to see how true this is?
Following observation, and we have somebody placed tonight to really go, and then also talking to the sheriff's office. How are you doing things? What are you doing? For example, we really need to go, so who has been there, talking to people that are going to the shelters. What have they observed?
Yeah.
Have they been, for example, if people are lined up for, even if you pat down, it's like we're not lined up and we go through an airport, pat down. So why don't, kind of those are the type of things that we
I mean, how do they identify themselves as Metro employees when they go through the whole process, or is it just like go through it, don't tell anyone who you are, and let us know?
We will. It's a lot of conversations. When you're on the bus, you can get to talk to people who have been out there. It's conversations that we have at the staging area that my team has. Really hearing from all sides. So it's a mix of things. So we don't do the secret kind of the consumer, but somebody who is there, right? As
My whole thing is like.
And we're taking it seriously regardless.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that some of this stuff isn't true, and some of these people didn't feel traumatized by it, is my whole perspective on it. I do think that the numbers don't lie, and just based on the data we were given at the last meeting with it being so low for the people that are going to the overflow shelters, I do think it's important that we address this sooner rather than later. I know it would make sense to revisit it next winter for logistical purposes, but I do feel that we run the possibility of people dying.
Mr.
Yeah. So with in the letter, the things Mr. Ackett brought up some great points, I think. But when we look at these points, I want to caution us. I want to speak to measurable barriers. Because and just what's the opportunity for shelter? The overall goal is to have people outside, inside, right? I think that's our goal as a city in working with this overflow shelter. And so if it's a jail or what it may be, we have to look at our end goal. Our end goal will be to remove people from outside to inside. Now, moving forward, I think we can start to find a better place. Because right now, I don't believe that where the location is best for individuals experiencing homelessness, because they have to leave the area that they're in, go to another area. And when we think of ourselves, our neighborhoods are our neighborhoods if you're in a house or if you're sleeping outside, right? So this is their neighborhood. So maybe finding a better way. So looking at different things, and then ease of transportation to the overflow shelter. So how easy is it for people to come? And so looking at measurable outcomes that we could ask the mayor to think about in the coming years as we start to make a plan. And I like some of the points, but overall, I'm not sure if these are things that we could capture measurable attention with. So to kind of think more in a phrase of how are we measuring this. Yeah.
And this is just a draft.
No, I think
That's why it's in front of y'all.
Because you got voluntold to do it.
Yes, no, and I think it's outstanding. Thank you.
And I think it's important to clarify that we currently have a bill going through council asking for a long-term plan.
Exactly.
So I think what our letter is to do is to try to point out some concerns that we've seen immediately and ask if there are better ways to do it this year as we're trying to get through this season. And some of those I think are, last year I'm not sure who the volunteers were running the shelters, but I think this year we went, hey, we got this place with beds and here are guys who know how to run this place. They'll be great. But I'm not sure they're necessarily trained in dealing with trauma-informed care. So, I think we are rightly pointing out what we have seen as issues, and we can work on the language there, and then move towards, is it possible there are other locations that will work this year, and at least can we work with the personnel who are in charge and do some quick training on how to do this, because it sounds like they just went, we're in a jail, this is how we do jail,
Right, exactly.
In the jail, do they work with people with mental disabilities or any of that sort? Or
So right now it's social services, so it's social workers that staff it, but on the sheriff's office or security side, I am not sure.
okay,
And
okay.
And if I can say something to the legislation, the way it's written right now, please help keep it that way, because it's open enough to allow for an RFP, and I'm fully supportive of having, it also gives the timeline for a plan, for a needs assessment, to really look at the needs. And I think that's an opportunity and an education tool, and do that early, and have a timeline, I think by the end of May, in place with also a plan, which actually helps me, because frankly, every year when I go in May and talk to people about let's get together, it's too warm, so that's really, and also it's early enough for the conversation that Metro Council has about funding.
So I think we got the long-term plan we're good on. We just need to work on the next cold night. Councilmember Parker.
I wanted to say, just for the sake of the letter, which is what we're discussing right now, if we could clearly state sort of what our concern is about the current facility, and then say, as has been said, are there other opportunities that might work in the city that we could use? I kind of agree. I don't know about putting the personal testimonies in this letter as much as they shed light on the situation. I think that the facts are there, and we could talk about sort of some stuff around best practices, like well-recognized best practices around operating these shelters. But that's all I really had.
May I ask a question?
Councilmember Hassett.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, and we new ones don't have the background to know it, but those who've been around. So does Metro only have one overflow shelter? And last year, did we just have one?
Yes.
And last year, it was a community center as opposed to a jail. So that involved bringing in beds and things like that. So it's been a makeshift response for the past 2 years.
So we now have a facility that's available with beds. So it's just sitting there waiting whenever we need it. We don't have to shuffle things around, is that right?
As far as having...
So our issue is where it's located and the behaviors of those who are in charge. not necessarily matching with the needs of the people being served. Am I understanding this?
Yeah.
It being a physical jail is what
traumatic.
is
Facilities
traumatic.
traumatizing.
Well, I mean, all this together, just trying to get my hands all around it.
Councilmember Swan.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm on the letter as well. I think that I would use one or two, maybe the first one, especially if it feels like jail, because you're actually having testimony from the people that are inside. But I wouldn't want that to be the focus of the letter as well. I want us to talk about the issues, the barriers, including the location, and then you can now put the quote of one of the residents, which is an actual person, and then the last part will be to talk about these are our recommendations for this year of what we think should take place. If we cannot find a new location, somebody suggested training for the people that are dealing with it. I think that would be good. Then I would not, and this has nothing to do with the what we're talking about, but for me, the sentence about why the Nashville Rescue Mission successfully provides, I would take that out. That has no bearing to what we're talking about. So make it about the overflow shelter. We have an overflow shelter, but unfortunately, that overflow shelter is not serving the need because location, one of the, are you writing? I feel like I'm dictating.
No, you're good. It's a draft.
And so because you don't want to talk negative about something and start with they're providing wonderful services. It negates everything else that you're trying to say below it. And so let's do that and then talk about the condition, the location, the transportation, the facility being a jail, and then talk about the quote of the person that was actually in there. If these are the people that we're servicing, it's a disservice if people don't feel comfortable to go there to the point that they're not going.
Yeah.
And then we can now go into, we're recommending that Metro look into another facility for this year, but if that's not feasible or not possible, then we're saying as an alternative, can we recommend training or have somebody else run it, if that's still possible at this point.
Or oversight,
Oversighted. I heard that they were not letting people in at some point. Are they doing that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they had, I heard they had a tour actually for service providers. I was out of town at that point, so they could actually see what the building is and, yeah.
Okay. So I think if they allow service provider, because we want to stress that we want it to be a partnership between Metro and people that are already doing this work, and so bringing in these partners at this point, because they know the people that they serve, will be very good. I think if we frame it in that context, it would presenting a solution.
And to be clear, I think this was explained last time. I mean, there are enough beds already, but there are people who have barriers to the existing beds. So beds sit empty while people sit outside and freeze because they have pets or because they're couples or they're mentally ill and they can't deal with that many people. So that's the population that we're trying to serve. And I think one of the issues that happened last year was we created another alternative and people went, I don't really like the rescue mission. So then they showed up as well. And the staff was overwhelmed because, and I'm not sure how you deal with that issue. But I think what we're trying to say is we want to make sure that we're providing a place that serves that population in a way that they can access it and feel safe. They may not necessarily feel like it's the Ritz-Carlton, but safe and able to be there. I mean,
can I ask a clarifying question on the RFP statement that you made, Judy? When you would like for Metro to go forward with an RFP later in subsequent years, do you envision the nonprofit that would be awarded the RFP using Metro facilities or would they be using facilities accessible to that nonprofit?
Those are the things that we need to detail out in an RFP, but ideally if they could work with congregations or some communities, I think it's also something where Metro probably should, that's my opinion, provide some support in helping identify the location because that's difficult.
Yeah.
It's not that, I had actually someone from my team last spring start going around trying to solicit potential locations for nonprofits and what it would cost or somebody to step up. The other thing, an RFP, when there's money behind it, would show how many nonprofits are going to step up, because I couldn't get somebody to give me a budget of what they would need to get that in.
Good. Thank you.
But by next spring, we'll have 2 years' worth of information on what we've spent as a city doing it.
3 years, yes, 3 years. Yeah.
That's good.
I was just wondering, to get back to something that Zulfat said, if we can't get the location changed this year, and we know that could be a dicey proposition, do we feel like some damage has already been done, we're not going to be able to overcome from the PR aspect amongst the homeless community? I mean, what do we need to do to try to get people within the homeless community, if we can change things, to give it a chance again, to actually access it?
Yeah, I have some ideas. It's really hard for me to make a statement right now based on that, but there would have to be some, and we really would have to engage the outreach community. And so I already have, one of the things I'm doing is really coordinate with outreach groups year-round. How do we actually identify the most vulnerable people year-round? And so we already doing that, so I have these contacts that engage people throughout the day to really hammer home what's happening and let the people know out there where they live right now, and we're in the encampments of what's happening, and try to see. But what's critical is whatever we need to also have the trust of the service providers, and whatever we say is going to happen, that needs to happen. We can't have something that for example, I'm just taking something easy. If we're saying we're having a hot meal, we better have a hot meal. If we're saying we have this and this, we better have that. People may give us one more chance based on the relationships that we have. And my role has really been as a community coordinator, more so than any other coordinator. So I'm always in the between thing, but I have trust with the community still, that if I'm saying this is what's going to happen, if I feel, and I will not say so if I feel that's not the case. It's all about the trust, and if any message we will get out has to be based on their trust and with the action behind it.
Great. So we feel like we have a good introduction with the revision that you've done there. Maybe one or two quotes as opposed to all three.
I think Zulfat's right with just the first quote.
The first one is the most impactful.
And
We're
then-
not trying to incite.
Right. And then,
But we need to know that's a true quote before we put anything in the letter. We need to make sure that's legit.
Oh, no, I know.
Yeah,
Because somebody called me, one of the partners that actually works on these, emailed me, neighborhood health work with a lot of homeless people, and I got an email from the CEO about this is what people are saying, it's like a jail and all of that. So I have people that can corroborate that part of it. But before we finalize the letter, I think that the part on, because we should know that it's a possibility we may not be able to find an alternative location. So let's not finalize the letter without saying, in the event that there's no alternative location, if you can supply us and the other partners in terms of what can we do to make this location okay for the time being. So whether it's the training or the hot meal, or we need to have that in the letter, so that it would not be, there's no other location, we tried, we're sorry. I think there should be, this is our first priority, find another location. In the event that you cannot, then the one that you have now, these are the steps that will be acceptable, or which we should not come up with. People working with the people should be able to give us what those are.
Councilmember Parker.
What access do community groups have to the current Metro Overflow facility? Like, let's say if, I know a group that does a hot feed downtown, if they wanted to go one evening and do a hot meal, would they be allowed to do that?
Probably that's no. And it's because the access is, but what would happen is they can partner with social services on the meal. And it would have to be ahead of time, but it's not something that's even easy access for that.
So that might, if we do have to live with the shelter, that might maybe lowering barriers to community assistance and engagement.
But that's also been the case a little bit before, because if you, when all this started, when you had people just come in and out, it got out of control. From like at one point, you didn't even know who's a community member and who's actually somebody who needs services. You know, when it was like at one point we had the fair, not the fairgrounds, it's just one of the community.
Yeah, East Park Community Center?
No, it's the farmer's market. I remember one year was the farmer's market, and I remember there was so much in and out in traffic that it had to be closed down for volunteers to just show up, because people wanted to help, but it got just more in the way. But they can contact me, contact Renee Pratt at MSS, and we can see what can be arranged and how people can help. So one of the things I take back is to get with community members, ask for exactly that question and do it ASAP. What would it
Yes.
make
Well,
more
what would
acceptable
make this?
if,
What would make
you know,
this work if we cannot find?
Yes.
Because this is December, and so if we cannot, what are the things that must happen for this to work?
And one thing I forgot to mention, there's also talks about putting a grievance process in place for consumers that directly can, what does that process and policy looks like? How can they actually, and MSS is working on that.
So staff training and grievance process and.
Well, do we want to keep the scope of do we want to include recommendations for if we have to continue at this facility?
I think we have
I
to.
would, because you may not get the opportunity to go back and write another letter.
Yes.
And so I think if you're going to, and because of the timing too,
Yes.
because we're already in it. So I think it's better to say, look, our number one choice, we are saying look for a different facility. That's what we want, right? But in the event that, because if they come back and say we couldn't find a facility, we've lost another month or two. Okay. In the event that you cannot, this is what you can do on the one that you have.
I would say, though, I mean, again, these three comments had nothing to do with physically where they were. It was the way they were
Treated, yeah.
And so,
So
I mean,
the
I
training.
think that's just a matter of
Training.
staff training.
Training, yeah, the training we do.
So I think that's part of it.
So we'll take these two drafts, put them together, send them through Hannah, because we got to send it through council. And I'll leave a space blank for recommendations that you all might have that you want to get to us. And then I guess you would take it from there.
That sounds like a plan.
Just don't hit reply all.
Yeah. Well, Hannah will be sending it.
If by any chance you have something tomorrow, we can powwow and talk about it then or whatever.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
I
bring
will
it.
try and get it done tomorrow.
Yeah, if we could see it tomorrow, we could all huddle up and.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and then we can do electronic signatures if we need to do a little bit of.
Do you all use, we cannot collaborate.
Yeah.
That's right.
I said Google Doc would have solved the problem.
Try and get it done tonight.
A letter and a SharePoint.
I think just to be open to the world. So I will apologize. I apparently messed up in my invitation to Kay Bowers. I thought she would be here tonight to talk about New Level CDC and how the nonprofits are building. So I will either have her at the next meeting, or I've also talked to Emily Thaden to talk about Community Land Trust, because that's also something I want us to get educated. So at least 2 more meetings for education, and then I would love us to start thinking sort of, long-term, kind of at what our we know what our mission is, but to say, here are 5 objectives we'd like to do as a committee, and possibly to put some. So that will be our New Year's resolution, so be thinking that way. So I will let y'all know ahead of time if we are indeed meeting before the next council meeting, and if not, for sure we'll meet in January. And if we can loop this through before tomorrow, that'd be great, and if not, I think we can still work through Hannah and get this letter out.
So is our goal to get this to Mayor Cooper before the end of the week?
I would say yes.
Yes.
Okay.
If we think that's reasonable.
Okay.
When is the administration meeting on this again?
I
Next week?
I don't know
Oh, okay,
right
they
now.
are.
We already have met,
Okay.
so the metro stakeholders have already met, and there's ongoing communication. But we had a meeting right before Thanksgiving with the community partners.
Oh, okay,
To
cool.
really take in all the letters, everything they presented was presented there too, and it really discussed on some of the possible solutions, and so there's going to be a follow-up with that.
Good, very good. Any other business?
I don't know if it's business or not. I'll just say it. Is it okay for us to move our meeting back to 5:30 or 5:15? Because it seems as if the
budget is always
budget
late?
always running late.
Every single time.
So it might make, I mean, if that works for the rest of the committee members, to push it to 5:15 or 5:30, that way you're not missing half of the members.
Yeah.
I think that budget season is going to run between now and June, so
It will get later and later.
that might be wise.
Yeah. Okay.
We might have to look at it.
Is it a motion?
Budget meeting. Well,
4.
yeah.
I
Is that
second.
is that a motion?
Oh, yeah, it's
5:30
a
for
motion.
now.
5:30 for now, yeah.
5:30? Okay. If not, we'll have snacks before then. I
Can
think
I
that's
ask
reasonable.
one question?
Yes, ma'am.
Back, since we have these wonderful resources.
Since we have resources.
One of the things that you said that really struck me was the idea of trust and standing by our word. And so I think not only in the letter, but as we approach this, there has to be something. And how do we get the message out to the population that needs to hear this in a way that they're going to try us again?
It's consistency. It's really through the service providers that have already built trust relationships. It's a long-term thing. One of the things we also discussed with the community partners, and Lindsay had brought it up last time too, so the mission has lowered their barriers. That word is not spread yet. Over the last 2 years, they've really changed some approaches. That word has not spread yet. So it's persistency. It's persistence and really also outreach coordination and getting the message out through the service providers.
So it's really kind of a trickle
Yep.
effect.
Yep.
Oh, and one more item I will bring up. Slade has created a SharePoint for this committee so that we can put, best practices and good stories from other cities that are doing things, and he's already got a couple of things on there. So I will send y'all an email about how to access that, and also Gloria and Sulfat and I had some great sessions at the League of Cities that had some great ideas that we also can put some of that information on as well. We can
And
just throw
60
things in.
minutes, did you see? I only caught part of it yesterday.
No.
About homelessness and affordable housing.
SharePoint?
2 hours.
Yeah. So
We could share
It's
some
information.
resources. I mean,
We can do that, a
yeah,
SharePoint?
right.
we can't discuss things, but we can
plot them
put PDFs and just plot them out there and say, here's something else that somebody is doing well, read it.
That's what
You know.
Denver did.
Yeah, look what Denver did, yeah, that kind of thing. So anything else? Okay,
Can I tell you a little bit about the Barnes Fund since I'm here?
absolutely, we would love that. And did you get to meet everybody?
I kind of
Khaki
introduced
Friskus
myself to
Warren.
most people. I'm Khaki Friskus Warren. I'm the chair of the Barnes Fund. If y'all reappoint me tomorrow evening when I'm here, so.
You can campaign right now.
But I just wanted y'all to be sure you know what the Barnes Fund does.
And we did have Hannah come
Oh, good.
our first meeting and give us.
Okay, very
the
good.
mayor's
So
office
we've got
view.
the education. I will say tomorrow we have a meeting scheduled. We had the best round of applicants that we've ever had this time. It was very competitive. We put a cap of $2 million on the applications, so we know that our partners could do more and we could go further if we had additional funds. But to give you an idea, we'll grant $9.5 million, and that is going to leverage over $120 million in housing, and it will create 680 affordable units. So the best round that we've had, we really do appreciate the support of the council that you're continuing to fund the Barnes Fund. And I think it's a lot, the trust issue is important here as well, because our nonprofit partners are out there trying to put deals together that are very complex. They have to stack funding, and being able to trust that the Barnes Fund is going to be there to provide that leverage is just really essential. So thank you for your funding.
Thank you for saying that. We'll continue to do that. All right, we got our marching orders. All right, this meeting is adjourned. See you all tomorrow.